rest of the Premier League. And we should start with City because they did quite a bit of business in that short window, Dave.
Yeah, it was such a contrast between them and the other Club World Cup team, Chelsea, that City got their business done, didn't they, practically, for everyone they were trying to get in time. That Reinders was signed from AC Milan. We know, as we said in the last show, Aïnouri got confirmed from Wolves. Cherki got in before the deadline from Lyon. And they even pinched a keeper from Chelsea, didn't they? Marco Bettinelli, I think it's pronounced, because Scott Carson departed. They got that homegrown spot filled, didn't they, as they wanted to. So I think whatever anyone says, and they'll try and massage it, that they didn't want Kirkes and Wirtz, we know the truth. City showed a ruthlessness and efficiency to get that business done, it's fair to say, in time. And interestingly as well, that, as it says there, Jack Grealish, as we mentioned, we said he was going to be left out the Club World Cup squad. He's now looking at options like Everton, Villa. So we'll see what's next for him. But City, in terms of that, they got their business done before they head out.
Now, by contrast, Chelsea, also in that competition, have had a bit of a mare.
Just a complete mare in terms of everyone they tried for before, as in Ekitike, couldn't get it done. Seems like, actually, from reports, that he might not even be that keen. He may be looking at us. We'll have to see how that unfolds. Bino Gittens, do you remember the lad at Dortmund? They were haggling right up and they left it too late. They couldn't do that deal for him. There is the AC Milan keeper as well. Magnin, wasn't it? Mike Magnin, the French international. They were back and forth, but they pulled away from it because they didn't want to sign a 27th goalkeeper or whatever it was as well. So absolutely everything fell through for Chelsea they were trying to do. And it's quite interesting, as it's there on the screen. They have made a decision in terms of anyone that wasn't part of the squad who was on loan was not going to the Club World Cup. So Felix, Petrovic, Sterling, even Axel Disasi, because people thought they'd take him back when that Villa loan finished. They were like, nope, you're staying, you're not part of the squad, we'll sort other moves. And everything else for Chelsea, I mean, it's just funny that they report this as here we goes or breaking news when players move between Strasbourg and Chelsea. It's just kind of funny, isn't it, really? They report even as anything like, oh, negotiations between Chelsea and Strasbourg. I mean, come on. We all know exactly who owns both of them. So Kennedy Paez, the young South American starlet, he's going to be there on loan at Strasbourg next season. And Sarr has come across, along with Andre Santos, to move into the Chelsea squad. But yeah, an interesting comparison, considering this whole deadline was about the Club World Cup teams. City landed everyone. Chelsea, nada.
Yeah, which is, quite a shocker for that lot. But never fear. They will get their act together in the next one. You can be sure of that. Now, Leeds are on their way up, and they are... Do you remember when Forest came up and there was the crazy amount of signings in? Did it end up being like 30 players or something wild over a couple of windows? Leeds are obviously going to have to, the promoted clubs don't have the greatest of records in the Premier League of late. They're going to have to try to do something, make some sort of a splash. Who have they got their eye on? Have we heard anyone? Is there anyone fall into that category, like maybe like Grealish, who, had this high profile but is unsettled at their club? Is there anyone that they're aiming their noses at?
I like this, by the way, because I am sick of when clubs come up. Like Norwich, who always come up and spend like 4 million quid, and then everyone wonders why they go down, and they're just there to collect those parachute payments and that type of thing. That annoys me. So I like when Forest did that madness the other season, or clubs have a real go at it. I've always got time for that. And the reason it's important to call that out with Leeds, that their interest is still in quite a few players. And I won't pretend I know it inside out, but the info that we got is Leeds ownership group is serious, isn't it? It's linked to the San Francisco 49ers. There's the Red Bull investment. They want to have a real go at this and know it's going to take serious cash to bridge that gap. And as the Athletic said, they're trying to sort of deal for a centre-half, Biol at Udinese, somewhere around 15 million. They had a bid turned down for Habib Diarra at Strasbourg, so Sweeney Todd didn't do him a favour there at 22 million. Sean Longstaff, who's released on a free, they're having talks with him at the moment. They're trying to get that over the line. And someone did mention it. They had made an inquiry for Kostas Tsimikas as well, but inquiry was all I have. I didn't have anything more as like a bid or anything like that. But just from asking around about it, there's quite a few journalists who were saying, like, just keep an eye on Leeds. It might be tough for them to convince those targets, you know, to come and a newly promoted team and how it works out. And it's probably, as if you said rightly, it's not helped by the fact the promoted teams are usually the relegated teams at the moment, aren't they? That plays into the mix. But I like this. Leeds look like they're going to have a proper go at it.
Two people I know quite well will be very excited about all of this. Big Leeds fans. Some other bits then around about the league. We've got some Arsenal news. Zubimendi is close. We have some Mark Guay news, a little bit about Newcastle. Is the Thomas Frank thing completely finalised? I see several different things, threads here for you to tie together for us.
Yeah, there's quite a lot just going on around the Premier League. Nothing's really, despite we want to call it window one, nothing is ramping down. It's quite the opposite. Everyone's still in full-blown get-it mode. And Zubimendi's an interesting one because it's come out. Arsenal are going to win that race, and they're going to win it by paying even more than the release clause. They're going to pay above that, so they can do it in installments and talk around it'll be the 70 million euros, which works out around 61 million quid. So that bit extra to break it up in installments. Mark Guay, a player that still just seems to keep going a bit quiet now and again, but suggestions that Arsenal are in the mix for him. So that's one to mention. This one, Newcastle are a fascinating team because of all the things they need. And Bruno Guimaraes, their captain, spoke this week about we need to strengthen a number of areas. And he mentioned, like, we probably need another attacker. And he was on international duty. We probably need to look at the midfield as well. But the big one they're moving for is James Trafford, the Burnley goalkeeper, 30 million quid. That seems to be the one. And it's interesting as they say it, competing with Nick Pope for the number one position. I mean, Eddie Howe's in charge and he's making the shots, but it's an odd one. It doesn't seem like it's the priority call, but hey, who are we to tell Eddie Howe and Mad Dog Tyndall what's the best thing for Newcastle that way? You also mentioned Thomas Frank. I mean, all the suggestions are we're waiting for that compensation deal to be done, around 10 million quid, isn't it, with Brentford, so he becomes a new Tottenham manager. And Brentford, I thought you were a good run club, but the fact that the exclusive from various ones tonight seemed to be Scott Parker on your shortlist. I mean, if ever there was a drop-off, I would honestly say, maybe this is one of those crazy early calls, but if you look at Brentford, if they do lose Frank and Buemo and Visser, for instance, and they allow Scott Parker to come in, I'd just keep an eye on Brentford at the wrong end next season would be my suggestion. Like, he's absolute spoofer is Scott Parker. So there you go on that one. And then the other one, Bournemouth. Yeah, everyone's expecting them to be raided. We know about Zabiani. Semenyo is a possible departure. And a name that Liverpool fans will remember, Johan Bakayoko. Do you remember the Belgian, the PSV, right-footed left winger? He's got a year left to go on his deal as well. So Bournemouth are having a look at that as well, or maybe a cut price move. So yeah, there's just a few teams beginning with B. There's a lot to keep an eye on for.
Scotty Two Coats, I am taken aback, and I'll tell you what, I might just make a sort of cheeky little trip down. I'm not familiar with the old betting, but I might make a little trip down to my bookie and say I'd like to put money on Queevy and Kelleher facing the most shots in the Premier League. I think he's going to be a busy boy, and he'll be very much required. Hopefully he'll have a great season for himself.